We're going to start talking about invisible hems, and this is a sewing technique that a lot of sewers shy away from and think is quite complicated, but there are fundamentally two things you've got to get right. One, the setup of the machine and the calibration of it, and two is the folding of the fabric, and I'm going to teach you how to do both of those now. So an invisible hem essentially leaves you with a couple of stitch marks on the right side of the garment, but on the underside, this is where all the work is happening. Okay, so if we look a little closer at the stitching itself, on the hem allowance, you've got lots of running stitches. So it's made up of a running stitch, then a zigzag stitch, lots of running stitches, zigzag, lots of running stitches, zigzag, and so on and so forth. And the zigzag stitch is what catches the main garment piece and actually hems the garment itself. So I'm going to teach you how to do this hem and how to set everything up. And by the end of it, I'm pretty confident that anyone will be able to do an invisible hem. So we're going to start by looking at the folding. And this is the thing that people get most anxious about. So first of all, we're going to mark our hem allowance. So for this hem allowance, we're going to use a typical 1¼ inch allowance, which is about 3 centimeters. So I'm just going to mark that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold that hem allowance up and give it a press. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to close off that raw edge. So normally you would fold it over about 7mm or about 1/4 inch. But I'm just going to give myself a little bit more flexibility because we're going to need to be stitching along this part of the hem. So I'm going to press that and then I'm going to fold that over and just give it one last press. And ordinarily, if I was working on a standard double rolled hem, I would then go ahead and top stitch along this point here. But we're not, we're doing an invisible hem, and an invisible hem requires one more fold. So just to recap, we folded the raw edge over to the wrong side once, and then twice to the wrong side. And then what we're going to do is we're going to fold the hem under to the right side of the fabric, so it will look like that. And then finally what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that about 5 or 6mm of the hem allowance is poking out from the bottom. And then once you're happy with that, you can give it a press. So what I'm going to do is just going to recap one last time, just so we can get a really confident idea of how to do this. So we're going to go fold over, fold over, fold under. And we want to be able to be working on this part of the hem allowance. So we're going to set the machine up now. So we're going to need to find the invisible stitch. Okay, and it will look like this. And most machines will have a stitch will look like that, even if it's on a manual machine. And it's a zigzag followed by a couple of dashed lines, zigzag, a couple of dashed lines, zigzag. So if I press that one, that's going to set that stitch up for me. Now it is already preset my settings, but if you have to do it on a manual machine, then you probably want your stitch length to be about 2mm, and your stitch width, if you've got the capacity to change it, you would want to probably have that somewhere between 4 or 5mm wide. Okay, so that's your machine setup. That's the stitch that we're going to be working with. Now There are two different types of feet that you may be familiar with. Some machines don't come with these feet, so you might have to buy them separately. But these are both invisible hem or blind hem feet. So if we start with this one, which is the most common one, basically what you've got here is a little rudder and the capacity to change that rudder. And when we get to stitching the actual hem, I'll show you how you can adjust this to get the perfect invisible hem stitch. This foot here is more common on computerized machines. And you may notice, again, it's a rudder. It's a rudder that goes on the underneath. But you will notice that there is a little divot just where the needle goes, and the rudder then comes straight down. And again, I'll show you how to set this up once we're actually sewing. Okay, so we're now going to start looking at placing our fabric under our invisible hem foot. So I'm using the first invisible hem foot we discussed. So I've wound the rudder so it's far out to the right hand side, and we know that the needle is furthest point to the left hand side, and that's good. So what we're going to do is we're going to place your presser foot down, and we need to make sure that the needle is just kissing the edge of that fold. Now if it was too far this way, what you're going to end up with is quite a sizable stitch, which we don't want. And if it's too far onto the hem allowance, it's not going to catch at all, so you won't even have a hem. So it's a really fine balancing act, and I'm going to place my needle in because I'm happy with that. So once it's positioned, I'm now going to close this rudder, and the idea is that I want this edge of the rudder touching this folded edge of fabric, so that when it comes to stitching, all I need to do is focus on where the fabric is positioned against the rudder, and I shouldn't have to worry about what the needle is doing. Okay, so I think that's about right. So I'm going to wind this on with my balance wheel initially, and then I'm going to give it a go. Just get rid of that tail thread. There we go. So you'll see it doing straight stitches, and then a zigzag, straight stitch, zigzag. And my eye is focused on here. Okay, now I'm just going to take this pin out, and I'm going to finish off simply because I want to show you how to use the other foot too. So you should be able to see that this is caught on this edge, and all the running stitches are down on the hem allowance. And if I fold this to the right side, you'll be able to see just these tiny little stitches just catching the hem. Now obviously if you're using a matching colour to the fabric, it'll be even more invisible, but that is the principle of how you do an invisible hem. So I'm going to just show you how to do it with the other foot. So I've put the other foot on, and you may recall that the rudder goes down and then has a little divot and then goes all the way down to the tip of your foot there. So the little divot is where the needle goes when it's doing its zigzag, so that will go on the left hand side of the foot, and then the running stitches will be on the right hand side. So when you place it, it's a really similar situation to the other foot. The only difference is that you want to make sure that the fabric, this edge of the fabric, is touching the rudder from the left side, not the right side. And then you want to make sure that your needle is just picking up the tip of the fabric, and it is, and away we go. So I'll continue to finish this hem and show you the finished result. Okay, so that now is the finished result, and it will look like this until you press it out. So that's what it'll look like on this side. That's what it'll look like on that side. But actually, ultimately, we're going to be pressing the hem back to its normal position and just pressing out where you have stitched. You might want to put a little bit of water just to kind of help take away that initial fold line. But as I said before, if you're using a matching thread to your fabric, you will barely be able to see that. And that's the finished article.